Welcome to the deep dive. Today we've got something, well, it's probably the most unusual set of sources we've ever worked with.
It was certainly a challenge to piece together.
Yeah, we received this stack of what look like fragments of the internet. There are partially loaded social media pages, some very strange search engine results, and then this. One incredibly detailed, high-level sales prospectus.
It really feels like we got a glimpse into a corner of the market that's not meant for public viewing.
Exactly. So this isn't a deep dive into an entire industry. It's a deep dive into a single asset. Our mission here is to put these fragments together to really understand the sale and, frankly, the staggering valuation of one premium domain name, Asiatement.com.
And it's not being marketed as just a website. The language is very clear. This is positioned as a global diplomatic and strategic asset.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because when you see the price tag on this thing, you realize you're looking at something completely beyond the usual models. This is where digital real estate meets, I guess, multi-billion-dollar geopolitical branding.
It's an unprecedented scenario. When we synthesized all the material, these separate web pages, they sort of coalesced into this incredibly sophisticated sales pitch.
Aimed at who?
Major institutions. The key words that keep popping up: strategic, institutional grade, sovereign. It makes it obvious the seller is expecting a buyer at the highest level of global politics or finance.
So this is being sold as a piece of essential infrastructure.
That's it, exactly.
All right, let's start at the foundation then. The name itself. The source material is extremely specific about the meaning behind Asiatement.com.
Which is critical because the semantic value, the meaning that's baked right into the name, that's the real product here.
It's an intentional compound word, right? Merging Asia with statement.
Yes, and the prospectus meticulously defines what they mean by statement. It's not just a sentence. It represents position, declaration, leadership, clarity. This isn't just casual branding. It's an exercise in what you might call prescriptive digital authority.
Right. And the overall purpose, stated by the seller, a company called Messursing, is for this domain to embody Asia's voice, positioning, and collective responsiveness on the global stage.
It's an entire diplomatic framework compressed into 12 characters.
If you were tasked with inventing the perfect digital brand for a Pan-Asian collective, this is probably what you'd come up with.
And that is the very definition of high semantic value in this context, a term they use a lot. For you listening, semantic value just means the intrinsic power of the word itself. A name like this communicates authority immediately.
So it bypasses that whole slow, expensive process of building trust from a more generic name.
Precisely.
But who is the intended buyer? The metadata we pulled from the Messrs of the listing gives us some huge clues. We saw keywords like 2025, stocks $1, DUO, even NFT.
What do those fragments tell us?
Well, what do you think they tell us? They seem so specific.
They tell us this is not being pitched to a domain flipper. Not by a long shot. These keywords imply the seller has already run financial models on this. They're associating it with billion-dollar investment targets, maybe complex corporate structures. DUO could be a joint venture.
And 2025, a specific fiscal strategy. NFT suggests tokenization.
Exactly. This whole package is prepared for acquisition by an entity with incredibly deep financial pockets and a lot of regulatory sophistication.
So they see the domain as a vehicle for future financial instruments, not just a static website address.
It's a digital anchor point, an anchor for what could be very complex geopolitical and financial platforms.
Yeah. Okay, so if the asset is positioned this high, who exactly are they targeting? The source material actually gives a very explicit list of ideal use cases.
And that list it's very telling.
It really is. It's focused almost entirely on non-commercial, high-level bodies. Things like Pan-Asian cooperation platforms,
Right.
institutional or diplomatic initiatives, economic policy think tanks, media and influence networks.
And they even mention tech, AI, and Web3 projects.
They do. But the clear goal seems to be facilitating official statements, positions, and global narratives from Asia.
And what's fascinating here is they're not selling marketing potential.
No, not at all.
They are selling institutional legitimacy. They aren't asking a company to build a business on it. They're asking a government or a high-level alliance to use it as a podium.
But here's the question I keep coming back to. Why wouldn't a powerful institution, one with, basically unlimited resources, just create their own brand name from scratch? Why spend billions on something prepackaged?
And that is the absolute core of the value proposition.
Yeah.
You're buying two things: time and risk mitigation. The documentation actually breaks down the key asset strengths to answer that exact question. First, they say it's short and authoritative, but the real key is that it's defined as institutional-grade naming.
Meaning it's ready to go day one.
Ready for governments, NGOs, funds, alliances. When the stakes are global, you just can't afford to spend months or even years building a brand to the point where it has authority.
So the buyer is paying for instant recognition, instant trust. They're minimizing the risk of a new, untested brand just failing to connect with a global audience.
Precisely. They highlight its global readability, meaning it works across cultures, and again, that high semantic value. It's designed to evoke leadership and clarity from the moment you hear it.
So the premium price is basically an insurance policy against failure.
It's an instant digital seal of authority.
That focus on instant deployment, it flows perfectly into the next part of the offering, doesn't it?
It does.
We're moving beyond just the name now and into the ready-to-use social networking infrastructure that comes with it. Here's where it gets really interesting, because they're offering a truly complete plug-and-play communication system.
Which is a brilliant strategic move. For an institution that wants to manage global narratives, the URL is just the front door.
The real influence is in the network.
Of course. The seller has completely eliminated the cold start problem by securing this consistent digital footprint across all the major platforms.
We have direct evidence of this from the fragments. The bundle includes a dedicated Facebook account. We even have the link to the About page.
It also includes the official X account, https://x.com/Asiatement.
And I love that the source material includes this little troubleshooting note about privacy extensions messing with the loading on x.com.
It shows how active they are. It's not just reserved. It's being actively tracked and maintained.
Right. And on top of that, there's a fully established YouTube channel with the handle @Asiatement. They're not just selling the address, they're selling the keys to the entire broadcast center.
The benefits, as they list them, are instant visibility, no cold start, and guaranteed brand consistency. Just think about the logistics for a multinational alliance trying to launch a coordinated message.
It would be a nightmare.
A nightmare. They'd have to register all these accounts, they'd run into naming conflicts, squatters, time delays. By buying this bundle, they get instant, unified control over their entire narrative distribution. It's ready to go. Immediately.
It just cuts out all that bureaucratic friction and digital risk, letting the buyer focus purely on the message.
That strategic completeness, that's a huge factor driving this valuation.
All right. Let's talk about the number that,
Yeah.
well, it stops the conversation.
Yeah.
We've talked about the strategic value, the semantic value, the infrastructure. Now we have to look at the catalog price.
Which is unprecedented for a domain name.
The figure is $3,051,699,340.
Let's just say that again. Over $3 billion.
It's hard to even process.
Yeah.
We're talking about a price that exceeds the annual budget of many national diplomatic programs.
And a price like that, it demands an analysis that goes way beyond real estate speculation. For you listening, a price like this doesn't reflect what a company would pay for advertising. It reflects what a coalition of nations might pay for a piece of essential, permanent international communication infrastructure. The price is tied to the strategic value they can get from it over decades.
And despite that jaw-dropping number, the transaction process they specify is hyper-professional. It's all laid out.
It is. A secure transaction via escrow.com, a 30-day holding period.
And they describe it as a fully professional, transparent, and internationally compliant process.
That level of detail confirms they aren't looking for private investors. They expect sovereign wealth funds, multinational corporations, or governmental bodies who require, perfect regulatory adherence.
Which brings us to this section that really elevates this from real estate to, geopolitical theory, the strategic and sovereign potential.
This is where the language gets very advanced.
It does. The prospectus says the asset may qualify for perpetual island exchange mechanisms. We have to try and define that.
We do. The sources are a bit cryptic, but the implication of a phrase like that is that this digital asset is structured to be integrated into these very complex international financial frameworks, the kind that usually deal with long-term tangible sovereign assets like debt or resources.
It suggests a legal and financial architecture built to last, to survive changing political landscapes.
I think so. And then there's the ultimate claim.
That the domain can be positioned as a digital sovereign or quasi-sovereign asset. For anyone listening, what does it even mean for a URL to be considered Quasi-sovereign.
It means it carries the perceived weight and the institutional immunity that's usually reserved for a nation's official property.
Like an embassy.
An embassy, its national bank, its flag. A quasi-sovereign asset, in this context, functions as an undisputed, recognized digital territory. This domain is being sold as the digital equivalent of establishing an official diplomatic headquarters.
But instead of a building, it's a global narrative platform.
Exactly. And the final detail just drives it home. It's designed for long-term strategic holding, not speculative resale. They are looking for an owner who will treat this with the permanence of international law.
This has been a deep dive into, well, the astonishing future of strategic digital assets. We started with just fragments and managed to piece together a multi-billion-dollar proposal for institutional infrastructure.
Complete with a social ecosystem and explicit claims of diplomatic positioning.
So what does this all mean? I mean, it proves that the control of a perfect, authoritative digital narrative is now priced higher than almost any comparable physical asset. The sellers see that influence is migrating online, and they've built the perfect turnkey solution for a continental voice.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question. Given that the sources define this domain as a potential digital sovereign or quasi-sovereign asset, we have to ask, where does the real power of international influence lie today? Is it in physical territories? Or is it in the control of these institutional-grade digital narrative that can reach billions of people instantly?
That's something for you to mull over.
It is. And if you happen to be interested, the listing provided contact information. The telephone is plus 1.971.369.0369, and the email is domain@masssourcing.com. We hope this deep dive gave you the clarity you were looking for.